Bill Grady from the Iowa Rock and Roll Music Association, and I'm with Steve Huston, one of the founding members of Head East. And Steve, last night you were telling a story that just had me in stitches, and I was wondering if you'd share that again here this afternoon.
Sure, I'd be glad to. Last night I answered a question that's probably the most commonly asked question no matter where I wind up, and that is Head East is a real unusual name. Where did the name of the band come from? Okay, the truth of the matter is, when we were about 18 or 19 years old, we made the commitment to become professional musicians. So we moved to Champaign, Illinois, where there was a music scene. There was about 30 or 40 clubs around the University of Illinois that had live music 7 nights a week. So if you were good enough, you could make a living playing music there. We were playing 6 nights a week, sometimes 7. And we got to the point where we could afford to hire one roadie.
One roadie.
Then we were ahead of everybody else. Everybody else was still grunting their equipment themselves. We had one guy that was paid to help us. This guy was an unusual character, and we didn't find out until he had worked for us for a while that he was on the run from the FBI for a variety of reasons. And the band had all moved into a 2-story house. We all lived together. Our living room was our practice room. And this guy had moved in and was living with us too. And so to throw off the authorities, he had changed his name from what it really is to Baxter Forest Twilight.
Baxter Forest Twilight.
Yeah, and I told him, I said, that's good. It doesn't sound like a made-up name to me. The FBI came a couple of times looking for him, and he was always able to convince them, even though he couldn't produce an ID, that his name was Baxter. And and even more unbelievable, they actually believed that his last name was Twilight.
Twilight, yeah.
I think what they assumed was his name was Greg Forrest, and he was throwing the Twilight on.
That's right.
But it was the name he chose to as an alias, I guess. Anyway, to make a long story short, Baxter was an acid head. He did LSD probably more days than he didn't. And we would all, if we weren't playing on a given night, we would go out and see some of the other bands that we considered competition. Baxter would take acid and sit out in the front yard at the house all night. We'd come home from the bars at 1 or 1:30 and go to bed. Well, one night Baxter, we were looking for a new name for our band because the old name was old and tired and worn out. And one morning about 6 a.m., Baxter came in and woke everybody up and said, we have to have an emergency band meeting. And so we said, okay. So we went to the equipment practice room and sat around, and Baxter said that when the sun came up, it turned into a giant head and spoke to him and told him to name the band Head East because it was a head in the east. And we all said, okay, Baxter, that's good. Now we're going to go back to bed. But later, we thought about it, and we talked it over a few times, and we thought, it's kind of an unusual sounding name, so we adopted Head East, and that's been our professional name since 1969.
So orange juice and acid, Breakfast of Champions, brought across the name Head East.
I believe it was probably Orange Sunshine. That was what the acid was called then.
Steve, thank you very much for sharing that story here today. Once again, congratulations for being inducted, and also congratulations to your bandmates here. It's a great thing to have us here, and a great thing to have you here, and once again here in Iowa.
Well, thank you very much, and many thanks to the Iowa Rock and Roll Music Association.
From Arnolds Park, Iowa, I'm Bill Grady along with Steve Huston from Head East. Thank you very much.
Adios.